Greetings, fellow moviegoers, and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CCS, and this is my pet gorilla, George. Now, seeing as how I get my thoughts on the theatrical cut of Superman 2, I will give my thoughts on the director's cut, with a new segment of the show I like to call Cut Comparison. What do I mean by this? Well, this won't only be a review, but at the end, I'll give you my thoughts on which cut of the movie you should watch. Alright, let's get into it. With the success of Superman the movie in 1978, it was obvious there would be a sequel. But to my surprise, the studio had actually guessed that the original movie would be a huge success and immediately started working on the sequel, with Richard Donner set to return, as well as the stars Gene Hackman, Margot Kidder, Christopher Reeve, and Terrence Stamp, all a part of the project. However, due to apparent budgeting constraints, Donner was fired and music video director Richard Lester was hired. And that was the man who gave us the theatrical cut of Superman 2. However, some fans weren't too happy about the more goofier tone that was offered to us in this theatrical cuts. However, they were in luck, as many people were more interested in extended cuts and, air quote, director's definitive visions. So in 2004, a petition was started to get the Donner cut out for fans, which would not only fix the issues from the theatrical cut, but also give the Donner feeling that the first movie had to offer. Released in 2006 on DVD, the same year as Superman Returns, which, yes, I will get to, the Donner cut was received well by fans, with many calling it the definitive way to watch Superman 2 and the true sequel to the original film. What are my thoughts about it? We're going to find out today. This is Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. Story-wise, this movie has a very similar structure compared to the theatrical version, with one crucial difference. It has a completely different feel, as the movie, rather than taking place a few years after the original, now takes place right after the original, as the Kryptonian villains are set free by the nuclear missile from the first movie. This makes a lot of sense to me, as the three villains made a brief appearance in the first movie, and for the sequel to continue right after the original, this is a definitely welcome addition. However, there are some moments in this film that I wasn't too keen on, but we'll get there in a minute. Honestly, I think this is a very fresh take on a movie that I wasn't too keen on, and I was very happy to see that this is the only genuinely good movie of the franchise. Is it perfect? Hell no. Is it good? Yes, indeed. What else makes it good, though? Well, let's find out, and also find out the negative aspects this movie has. Seriously, it's really flawed. I don't really feel like I need to discuss the characters in this movie because I essentially have the same thoughts on them that I do for the theatrical cut, except for two of them. Those being Lois Lane and Lex Luthor. Lois is not as stupid as she was in the original or theatrical cut, but she does pull off another stupid stunt in order to break Clark's will. And if you watch my review on the theatrical cut, I ranted on her jumping into the water and nearly drowning. Here, she jumps out of the window of the Daily Planet, which is also pretty stupid. I do realize why they did that. Not just to advance the plot, but also to make Supes look cool. I got the idea, but it flunked in my mind. That said, Lois is not too awful. Her finding out Clark was Supes was stupid in my mind at first because I thought she was actually trying to shoot him with an actual lethal gun, but she used blanks instead. Great save, movie. Also, she found out Clark was Superman by drawing a picture of him on an actual photo of Superman rather than just randomly guessing. She had a thread that she picked up on in the last movie, so Lois is much better in this version of the movie. And definitely better than she was in the original Superman, but I don't think she was amazing. I prefer modern Lois much more. As for Lex Luthor, in my review for the theatrical version, I claimed that Lex violently dumbed down Zod, and in this movie, that sort of changed. He wasn't great still, but he did make look but he didn't make Zod look incredibly dumb this time around. And that is probably because while watching this movie, Lex sort of grew on me. And that is because we sort of got more of him. And Otis and Tessmacher only have 5 minutes of screen time, and seeing as how I didn't like them in the first place, that makes me happy. As for the changes I love most, well, let's talk about that. I loved the inclusion of Jor-El. We didn't know a lot about Superman's biological mother, and her being the one to give him advice actually made no sense. That said, Marlon Brando actually filmed several scenes as Jor-El, and him giving advice to Superman was much better. And it also clears up a plot hole from the theatrical cut showcasing how Superman knew Zod. I mean, I'm sure that the mother told him at one point or another, or Jor-El, but I'm not gonna buy that. Zod's way of getting free was also much better, and it also made a lot more sense, as I said earlier. They also make Zod a lot more brutal, as he straight up murders a kid. That is just evil. Oh yeah, that moment he has with a gun is also incredible. That immediately made Zod a much better villain in my mind, and in my opinion, the best villain that these movies had to offer. A lot of shots were added to my shock were made by Lester, including Supes coming back as Clark after he rescued the kid at the falls, and Non trying out his laser eyes. I'm happy that a lot of this movie was cut down and it makes it move more smoothly. That said, I do have some problems. For one, the Battle of Metropolis and the finale are pretty similar. That includes the forced defending of the streets the citizens try to do and the wind thing that goes on forever, but it's cut down significantly. The finale and the Fortress of Solitude is pretty similar, but it doesn't have any of the weird powers, which is a good thing. It's just Zod and Ursa threatening to kill Lois, and I actually kind of like that a lot better. While I do prefer Lois and Clark realizing they can't be together in this, I don't like the way it was solved. They reused the spinning around the planet stuff, which fixes Washington, D.C., puts the villains back in the Phantom Zone, and makes Lois forget Clark is Superman. It's bad, but it does imply that Lois has some recollection of the event, but not by much. And it does solve a plot hole from the original, which makes me raise that score of that movie to an 8 out of 10. Also, there's no amnesia kiss. That's a good thing. So, I did just go on and on about what's good and what's bad, but I should talk about the effects the movie has and the music before I give my thoughts. The effects are mainly the ones from the 70s and 80s, and they do hold up. However, there is a bit of outdated CGI, which is a bit jarring. Are the effects better or worse? I don't know. The answer isn't entirely clear on that one, but I can give you an answer based around the music. It is amazing. The reason why? John Williams. Yep, John Williams returned, and he offers us yet another amazing score that is on par with some of his best work yet. Is it as good as the first one? No. Is it still good? Yes. So overall, what are my thoughts on the Richard Donner cuts? Well, I have problems, but I think it's good. It's the best of the 3 Superman movies I've watched, and this is by far my personal favorite of those. Not only that, but based on the 2 cuts, this is the definitive way to watch Superman 2. And I definitely recommend checking it out, whether it's on DVD or streaming where available. It really should be the definitive sequel to Superman, the movie. And with Superman Returns hopefully being okay at most, hopefully, I can have the definitive Superman trilogy at my disposal to showcase to people who don't know the character. So for that, I give the Richard Donner cut an 8 out of 10. So that's it for this review. We covered the decent to good Superman movies, but unfortunately, we dive into the 2 bad Superman movies next week. Tune in next week when we take a look at Superman 3. I'm really not looking forward to this one. With that said, my name is Mr. CCS, this is Movie Central, and that, my friends, is a wrap. See you next week.